Dominaria United, Episode 1, Echoes in the Dark. Written by Langley, Hyde. Published August 10th, 2022. Link to the original story is in the description below. To understand the story of Dominaria United, we will have to travel back to ancient history and provide some context to the settings and events. Our story begins with Karn excavating the collapsed caverns of Koilos, an extremely important historical site in the history of Dominaria. This is the site where the old plane of Phyrexia was first sealed away through a portal. Thousands of years later, the portal was accidentally reopened by young Urza and Mishra while exploring those caverns. Fast forward a further few millennia after this, Phyrexia gradually infiltrated Dominaria through this portal using the original sleeper agents, magically and technologically enhanced humans with extreme strength and endurance who seemed completely normal by appearance. The new versions of sleeper agents are a callback to the original, more simple variants. Karn is looking for information on the Golgothian Sylex, an extremely powerful artifact of unknown origin that Urza once used to end the Brothers' War, destroying the entire continent of Argoth in the process. Karn breaks through a thin cavern wall to find an ancient laboratory, one he thinks was used for human subjects. The text reads, "Intricate glass tubing, beakers of varying sizes, defunct burners, powdery remnants of ancient chemicals, wire cutters and rollers for clay, buckets coated with desiccated glazes, gears, and cogs, even a small vented forge. In one corner, shackles, a reminder that the caves of Koilos once housed the ugliness of the Thran before it transformed into Phyrexia." In a fun Easter egg, this laboratory is almost certainly either Yawgmoth's or Gix's when they were mortal, a laboratory for treating the sick Thran before they entered the portal to Phyrexia for the first time. Karn then notices over on the pottery worktop a parchment depicting the Sylex, as well as a slab of unfired clay depicting some of the symbols on the Sylex. He retreats with the tablet to his base camp, which is nearer the entrance of the caverns. Shoving aside some letters from Joyra begging him to return from his work, he thinks instead of how he has protected the Sylex, inside a titanium chest with no key, openable only by himself. Magically unlocking the mechanism, he places his hand on the Sylex. Normally, Karn can identify any inorganic material via touch, but the Sylex's copper-like material remains mysterious to him. The text implies that he believes it came from another plane entirely. Karn then hears the echo of an excavator dying down in the caverns and sets off to repair it. As he arrives, he sees the machine covered in oil he can't identify, as if it were organic. Karn sees cables embedded in the broken cave wall where the excavator had dug. Suddenly he realizes these cables are new. Grabbing one cable, it wriggles with a life of its own. It's alive! Karn tears it from the stone, splashing black oil all over everything, and the other cables retreat into the stone, collapsing the cavern passage behind him, and his chances to study the workshop for clues about the Sylex. Realizing the Phyrexians are present in the caves, he knows he must stop them, but he does not wish to risk the lives of other planeswalkers, as he recalls the death of his friend Venzer, who sacrificed his own planeswalker Spark to forever protect Karn from the corrupting influence of glistening oil. As Karn moves forward in the cavern, the raw stone gives way to carved religious friezes, including one that depicts a Phyrexian demon torturing a human woman whose face has been scratched out on stone. This is a religious depiction of the Praetor Gix battling the sleeper agent Xantia, though Karn recognizes neither of them. For some historic context, Xantia and Gix played major roles in the past of Dominaria. Xantia was born, that is created, in Phyrexia by Vat priests as a newt to serve as a sleeper agent in Dominaria. The first batches of sleeper agents created by Gix were androgynous, had superhuman endurance and strength, and high pain tolerance. They looked outwardly like normal humans and were sent to blend in, spy, and infiltrate positions of power within Dominaria to pave the way for invasion. Xantia had a rebellious streak and a desire for freedom, and so turned against Phyrexia in her duties. Urza Planeswalker eventually met her and decided to ally with her in the fight against Phyrexia, as she can sense glistening oil with her keen sense of smell. Gix, the Thran Untouchable who stabbed Glacian and became Yawgmoth's unwilling henchman, was completed into a Phyrexian demon and named Praetor, then given the task of overseeing the sleeper agent insertion of Dominaria for thousands of years. Eventually, Urza Planeswalker confronts Gix in the caverns of Koilos, but Gix is able to manipulate Urza's Power Stone eyes, the very Power Stones that power the portal to Phyrexia. Urza is nearly defeated, but Xancha and a fellow adventurer sacrifice themselves to save Urza, causing an explosion that collapses the cavern and appears to kill Gix once and for all. Now, in the long millennia between those events and modern Dominaria, cultists who worship Gix have arisen and sought out the caverns of Koilos as a holy site, as well as any Phyrexian technology they can find from the various invasions, and they even modify their bodies with artifice. Rona, disciple of Gix, first seen in the Dominaria set, is one of these cultists. As I mentioned before, when Karn sees the carving, he does not recognize Xancha or Gix, as he had not been created yet. However, her artifact Heart, the Heartstone, is what powers Karn himself, and imbues him with sentience. This Heartstone, a Phyrexian creation, is also what leaks the glistening oil onto Argentum, later Mirrodin, and starts the entire corruption that becomes New Phyrexia, in a poetic full-circle loop. This is mentioned later in the story by Rona when she mentions Memnarch and how Karn abandoned him. Now back to the story. Karn hears sounds and turns to see two humans with chisels and hammers, sculptors of the stone passage. However, he immediately sees what they really are. The woman's jaw has been replaced with a metal maw, including razor teeth. The man's open shirt exposes an artificial heart beating behind glass, and he has extra fingers on each hand. They lunge and attack at Karn, but he easily flings them both aside, stunning them, and he creates restraints rather than kill them. He recognizes they are not creatures of Phyrexia, but modified humans, likely cultists of Gix. Then the older male speaks and recognizes Karn by name, telling him that the Whispering One, Sheoldred, has a plan for him. Forming two gags, he leaves the cultists alive and continues down the cavern. Entering into a vast opening with a broad flat ground, Karn discovers a staging ground for an invasion. The cave echoes with screams and moans of tortured people, who Karn sees are being completed on numerous surgical tables while still awake. On the far end of the cavern, an ancient Phyrexian portal ship, a remnant of yet another invasion, is lodged into the stone walls. From the scythe-shaped portal ship dangles hundreds of wires, and in those wires Sheoldred herself, yet only her upper torso. She seems asleep and badly damaged. Tubes feed reddish, milky substances into her body while worshippers sing crazed praises and prayers below her. Karn sees acolytes of another related cult, the Society of Mishra, attending the surgical completions of screaming victims. Everywhere in the cavern are monstrous, completed people skittering on numerous limbs. Acolytes are stacking weapons beside a Phyrexian skyship, while some others work on an ancient dragon engine, and one figure is attending Sheoldred herself, a young woman with platinum-brown skin and dark umber curls who wears the cloak of the Talarian Academy, Rona. As she turns her head, Karn sees the glowing red mechanical eye, a nod to the late Gix's powerful laser-emitting eyes which could cut through metal and stone. Rona is busy fusing the flesh of the victims below into Sheoldred's damaged body. Note, the planar bridge Tezzeret uses to transport the Praetors can only transport inorganic material safely. Organic material is burned away and severely weakens, but does not kill the Praetors. Vorinclex, Gingitaxias, and Urabrask had all survived the portal in varying states of damage. Karn, believing he can end this here and now, begins to fabricate an incendiary device using his artifice magic. Suddenly, an alarm shrieks through the cavern. He spots the sculptor female who attacked him blowing a horn. Then the cavern erupts into a frenzy, surgeons loading their operating tables while others board skyships. The completed warriors begin searching for the intruder, and then a red beam locks onto Karn's chest. He barely drops to the ground as a bolt of electricity flies overhead, blowing up the rock behind him. Forming a battle plan to storm the bridge over to Sheoldred and Rona to ignite the device, he charges, knocking two acolytes off the stone and down an abyss. Now facing a crowd of armed worshippers, he grabs one spear and sweeps the entire crowd free, the wielder of the spear still dangling, then screaming as they fall down the deep crevasse. Karn continues fighting and bashing his way through the combatants across the stone bridge to Sheoldred. Rona steps between, her glaive coming alive with blue electricity, and they begin to duel mere feet away from Sheoldred's vulnerable body. As she loses her glaive wedged into his shoulder plates, he tosses it aside. Rona buries a dagger into his abdominal seams. Karn counters by grasping her skull in one massive hand and gouges in her red mechanical eye, Rona screaming, and tosses her into a cavern wall, breaking her leg as well. Karn walks over to Sheoldred, still holding the incendiary device. and grasps her torso to sink the weapon inside. At his touch, she awakens, and he can hear her thoughts through his senses.
Welcome, Father. What plans I have for you?
He recoils, but now knows the truth. The new sleeper agents are in every land in Dominaria, every government, every military. Karn shoves the device into Sheoldred's chest, but can't detonate it as all of his joints lock up suddenly. In his peripheral vision, Rona drags herself, leaking blood, oil, and a blue glowing ooze, mangled leg and all. Karn has been frozen by some type of magic or device of Rona's making. She had prepared for his eventual assault. In a grisly scene, she tears out the broken eye components, showing raw tissue and skull inside, and replaces it with another node from the table nearby. Rona then slices off her broken leg with her glaive, replacing it with piecemeal mechanical parts. The cavern rumbles as the new Phyrexian ships evacuate safely. Sheoldred splits apart, segments breaking away, sprouting dozens of segmented legs that run across Karn's body to the floor and away. Karn sees Rona limping away down a tunnel and realizes the paralyzing field is weakening. Then Rona turns back. I hope that as we take this plane, as we make it more perfect, you feel the keenness of failure once again. Karn strained against the force gripping him. His jaw ached.
What?
As you watch the people you've known for eons transform and turn against you, I hope it hurts.
Why would you say that?
Karn managed. He had to keep her talking. If he could break free.
What have I done to you that you would wish such horror upon me?
The force holding Karn seemed to loosen. He needed to push free. Even with the Phyrexian staging ground in the caves of Koilos empty, if Karn could capture Rona, as Sheoldred's right hand, she would be able to provide valuable information. All was not yet lost. You'd kill them, wouldn't you? Rona said, for reaching for perfection. He only needed one more moment. You gave Memnarch your intelligence, your capabilities, but he didn't have the experience to deal with it, the guidance. He was so lost. Rona's smile twisted. She enjoyed his struggle. I can't stand bad parents. Then she flips a switch on the cavern wall, igniting a series of explosions in the ceiling, burying Karn helplessly under tons of rock. He tries to planeswalk away, but quickly realizes the ancient interplanar and Phyrexian technology are interfering with his planeswalking, and he's ultimately trapped, knowing fully the scale of sleeper agents and invasion, but can warn no one. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to stay updated for more Magic story, lore, and legends on MTG Sagas.